Get ready to tune in, turn back the dial, and rediscover the airwaves of yesteryear. This is Echoes from the Past, your backstage pass to the shows that changed everything.
Boston Blackie is one of those rare characters that straddles both sides of the law, and honestly, that duality is what makes him so compelling. Created by Jack Boyle, he first appeared in print as a safecracker who had done time in a California prison. I mean, how often do you get a character who transitions so seamlessly from a life of crime to becoming, well, a detective? Now, what's interesting is how quickly Boston Blackie evolved. The character started off in magazine stories, but it wasn't long before he found his way to the big screen, and then, in 1944, into the homes of thousands of Americans through their radios. That first adaptation for NBC starred Chester Morris in the title role. If the name sounds familiar, he was already known for playing Blackie in a series of films. NBC really built on that momentum, billing the show as a thrilling summer replacement for The Amos and Andy Show. Can you imagine tuning in back then and hearing Blackie's quick wit and daring escapades for the very first time? But, okay, I've got to share this personal story because it's kind of what pulled me into this whole world of vintage radio. When I was a kid, I'd visit my grandparents, right? And one day, while poking around in their attic, my mom would say I was being nosy. But I prefer curious. I found this dusty box of old scripts. Turns out they were radio plays, actual scripts used for broadcasts. That discovery just clicked something for me. It was like stepping into a time machine, you know? I'd read those pages and could almost hear the voices coming alive, like little echoes of the past. And that's probably why I'm so fascinated by shows like Boston Blackie. They weren't just entertainment. They were windows into another era. So, back to NBC's version. It was a short run, just a few months in 1944, but it set the stage for what would come next, a longer, more syndicated series. But for me, it's the Chester Morris version that really feels like the moment Boston Blackie truly transitioned from being a pulp character to a household name. All right. Let's talk about the heart and voice of the Boston Blackie series, its key characters and, of course, the ever-present announcer. Starting with Mary Wesley, played by Leslie Woods. She wasn't just Blackie's girlfriend. She was his partner in crime-solving, in the best possible way. Her character brought warmth and, honestly, a certain charm to an otherwise gritty storyline. You know, she was like the perfect counterbalance to Blackie's no-nonsense attitude. And then, we've got Harlow Wilcox as the announcer. This guy wasn't just reading lines, he was anchoring the show's rhythm, giving it a kind of flow that pulled listeners in. And I mean, back then, that was a big deal. The announcer's voice wasn't just filler. It was part of the experience, almost like a friend guiding you through the story. It's something we don't necessarily get in the same way with modern podcasts. Now, what's fascinating and honestly kind of telling about the times, is how the show's sponsorships changed over the years. When it started on NBC, it was backed by Rinso, that classic laundry soap. And then, later on, sponsors like Champagne Velvet Beer and R Beer took over during its syndication run on Mutual. It's like the series grew up along with its audience, you know? Started out domestic, and then leaned into something a bit more, well, adult. But here's the thing about nostalgia. It's rarely perfect, right? Listener reviews of the series today are, let's say, mixed. A lot of fans rave about how the stories hold up, calling them riveting and highly enjoyable. But others? They point out issues with the audio quality. Things like volume spikes and missing segments. And yeah, I see where they're coming from. It's not the kind of pristine sound we're used to now. But even with those flaws, there's this undeniable charm in listening to something that connects you to another era. It's like holding a piece of history in your hands. Or, well, in your ears. When we talk about the legacy of Boston Blackie, it's impossible not to marvel at how this character has stood the test of time. Over 200 episodes were produced in the series' heyday, and that honestly says a lot about its appeal. From the 1940s to now, Blackie's ability to captivate audiences hasn't faded. It's not just the stories or the action, it's the way the show evolved to keep people coming back for more. And then there's Richard Colmar, who took over as Blackie in 1945. His portrayal brought a kind of depth to the character that really solidified Boston Blackie's reputation as a master detective. What's cool is that Colmar didn't just play the role, he became the voice of Blackie for, over 200 episodes? That's a huge feat, and it really speaks to his talent and dedication, because his style shaped how people remember the character even now. For a lot of fans, he is their definitive Blackie. Something else I find fascinating is how ahead of its time the show was with sound effects. If you listen closely, those effects weren't just background noise, they were storytelling tools. The ticking of a bomb, the click of a lock being picked, those details added tension, excitement, and even atmosphere. And honestly, that's inspired me in my own podcasting journey. The way you can use sound to guide a listener's imagination? It's incredible. It's like handing them a tool to visualize everything without ever seeing a screen. I think about that a lot when crafting audio experiences today. Now, here's the real magic. Blackie didn't just stay confined to radio. There were films, TV adaptations, even comic strip versions. Each medium brought its own spin while staying true to the character's essence of being, clever, resourceful, and ultimately loyal to justice. That adaptability is a big reason why Boston Blackie still feels relevant, even all these decades later. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I just want to say, thanks for joining me on this little journey through radio history. Boston Blackie isn't just a character. He's a reminder of how storytelling evolves, yet somehow stays timeless. And, on that note, we'll see you next time. Take care and happy listening.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the airwaves of the past. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the classic radio shows that shaped generations and left a lasting legacy. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode of Echoes from the Past. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to share it with fellow fans of history, storytelling, and vintage radio magic. Until next time, keep your dial set to the golden era and let the echoes of the past remind us of the timeless power of radio.